de Reencarnational Engineering Cryogenic System. When one enters, the mechanism of attachment, as you know, for those who have contacted me in the course of a person, I have been insisting on the issue of ascension for years, based on the principle of not returning to the terrestrial incarnational process. The mechanism of attachment, fear, guilt, and the famous karma oblige them to return bodily within the confused karmic system. But what I guess here, what I feel is that those stupid, foolish people who leaves the body and move on and passes on, they leave the body in a state of conditioning and beliefs. And what you believe after you leave your body will have a great impact on the other side. So what happens here is that you are literally forced to make options, or even to make choices. Either you want to go to a place like a purgatory or a hell, or umbral, as it's called in some spiritual dogmas, doctrines, or else you have a chance to restart all over again. And the chance is what? To reincarnate and to come back here much of the time to suffer, as is the case of many people here in this earth. So you have these two options left. When you go on, you pass on to another side. So when you die in a state of belief, you end up where? On the Anunnaki reincarnate center. The mechanism of attachment, fear, guilt, and the famous karma oblige them to return bodily within the confused karmic systems by guilt to return. This guilt is all placed upon you, is imposed upon you, to the terrestrial psychological, physiological process, and consequently to the suffering slavery. That's the incarnational process within the socio-economic and political system applied on the land since the time of the Anunnakis and their political rivals. When one enters the Earth incarnational cycle, we actually employ a cloned body developed by the joint genetic engineering of extraterrestrials, represent the different federations. Actually, we had a primal, much original and giant type of body suit, but if the passing of time and the exploration and invasion of these beings, we had our previous and original bodysuit manipulated and modified, as many of the people should know by now. Thus, they claim that this bodysuit that we use right now is actually a replica, fake, a clone. It's just like a made in China goods. Involved opposed to Orion and the political agreements on the extradition and exile of the galactic community to 37 worlds and quarantine, inclusive Earth, being the as one of these 37 worlds of the quadrant of Orion, besides the other sectors that in addition would add more than 235 S-like planets and other stars in the scope of the Milky Way and the quadrant that was surrounded by the war of Orion, Pegasus, Perseus, Cassiopeia, Andromeda, and M45 and sextant. These sectors or quadrants that had the most representative armed conflicts are those that are a part of the incarnational root of diverse humanoid species. The commerce routes operates. Insectoid, reptilian, and amphibian had ended up degladiating in the timeline of Orion as a dividing point of the existential flow of the different empires and federations, modeling the earlier and lesser represented conflicts. After these episodes, several planets and asteroids were placed in quarantine colonies, and billions of souls and consciousnesses were inserted there to promote the process of social cleansing and sanitation of society in the post-war process, and a complete and remodeling of the social operational model of these federations. The issue resulting from the quarantine and exile process in transferring billions of souls and consciousnesses was how to distribute them and put them all in the process of total limitation, and in addition erase their memory so that they could never return to a stellar civilization. It does wonder why we don't remember. Some of us, most of us here, at least 94% of us here in this quadrant, does not remember past lives. I do remember a few, but not much. There's people who doesn't even remember one. Without forcing evaluation performed by the responsible of each planet, these leaders eventually become the spiritual and religious hierarchy of each of these worlds. So that if before you can ever think of a return to your home on the other side, you go through an evaluation performed by the responsible, by the boss, by the manager of each planet. This leader eventually become the spiritual and religion hierarchy, or the a religion icon figure, like most of the time in quarantine. And with that, the selection of the ascent would pass through the sieve, the jaw, something like the wheat, and the jaw, something like that. And interest of them according to the history of these prisoners in the galactic context next to the different groups of federations. Just in order to place these immaterial souls and their respective astral body within a biological structure or bodysuit, it was necessary to create a religious and cultural context of imprisonment that permanently denied the existence of life beyond this world, as was done by Catholicism. Only Catholicism, Why Catholicism have to pay for all the sins of others and other doctrines on earth? The cryogenic body would remain for an indeterminate time or not in the process of technological freezing, and with that totally under control and without bothering its generators. But how to keep the uppermost astral body trapped? Among other things, the ability to project into outer space. So they created planets with the artificial quarantine field to mount a genetic interface with greater density to keep that astral body attached to that dense body that did not have access to external information. In this way, the consciential process would already limit part of the projection capacity of the upper astral body that would be tied to a lower astral body with greater density, generating religion's dogmatization through fear. The biological body employed on each planet should contain a density gradient compatible with the planetary astral body. To keep the astral body of the cryogenic body imprisoned by density and the limited biological body and its psychic, telepathic, and sensory functions. So in this case, we are bound by the S vibrations and the Van Harling belt, something like that, a magnetic field that is in the atmosphere. And before that, before we were hijacked and trapped and manipulated, limited, we did have psychic, telepathic, and sensory power, but those functions was taken away from us by reducing our pineal gland functions, since as switch it off some function within it. From 12 strands, they switch off 10 switch and left just 2 on. Less than that, and you would just crap on the floor like avians, like birds. This program of cultural, in order to be able to interact with programs of cultural lobotomization in these words, with religion being one of the most powerful mechanisms of imprisonment and introduction of behavior patterns imposed by fear and ignorance caused through fear, guilt, and karma, so that these souls could never again to resume stellar reality in a free way, but only by controlling the spiritual or stellar hierarchy of each planet and though its approval and selection. In addition to the controlled process of technological evolution that allowed this society to naturally reach the space and over time have access to stellar society with restrictions. Thus, the human biological body of the earth is a cloning, a replica, with the function that we define in the live cryogenic federations. That is, the soul is placed within an incarnational cycle under surveillance as in prison, while the true consciousness and stellar cryogenic body is maintained trapped, jailed within the cryogenic containment tubes according to the criminal penalty that was inflicted open or even imposed forcibly upon these beings or entities or souls. In this way, each of you, for the most part, begins to develop an incarnational process as if it were the beginning of its evolution and lose its original identity. Because you all think that is evolution. Nobody have to evolve anything. We already evoluted, but we have been downgraded, and we have been cast as a subspecies through a mechanism, program, a mechanism of abuse of power. Develop a fictional role within the control matrix of each planet of exile. In this way, these billions of souls that continue to arrive are placed in repetitive cycles between the threshold, the astral, and the physical plane through the reincarnational concept. And so, the powerful who know the truth, the one in power, dominate these planets through economic and religious power, maintain the power and control of the whole system by taking advantage of world ignorance and their favor. Just realizing the secret movements. In the case of the earth, the goal is to establish in a few years a new global disorder of the secret government with a new operational model of societies, access to new and old technologies, make a racial and social selection of the world population in a very clear way, as you can already perceive in the troubled political and racial landscape that humans are living on Earth at this time. And I'm putting the blame on certain religion, although all is in the same bucket. All is scraped in the same buckets. All is from the same sack. No differences. To hide the true constitutes who are the rich government or the secret government, and thereby establish the new world order that the Zionists have described in their secret books for more than 150 years, or could be the new world disorder. The control matrix acts beyond physicality because it involves the intermediate astral plane and the higher astral world ships and the seat of or temples of the so-called mass of light are located, who have the knowledge and work in this selection of devotees and followers within the different doctrine of humanity and their religions and cultural concepts. In this way, all humanity and all souls that are transferred in the temporal flow to terrestrial society end up being introduced in this model of consciencial lobotomy and forced to follow the religions and cultural doctrine based on the different periods of the terrestrial culture, either by the presence of the gods or by the religious institution that opposed by fear that doctrine. Thus, the condition of ascension and liberation of the control matrix on earth is reduced to a percentage of a maximum of 3%, because the heads are all gagged, all deaf, blind, and mute. The heads literally in trance. They won't wake up from this trance that is life. It's a program, a computer program for those who are in search of the truth and have no dogmas, no religions, and no connection to social true doctrine, excluded from the earth's social patterns or paradigms. For example, what if you understand about duality and its cosmic repercussion that put the ancient of days and true dictators in the politics of the different structures of the Federation end up interfering the function of the incarnated members of the Lanandodic order, once precisely when in the attempt to balance the duality, they generated the dictatorial process of control in the same way that the secret of Zionists behind the New World Disorder wants to insert into the political and social structure of the earth in the middle of the year 2026, when things will reach a critical level. On August 17, 2017, there were 2 attacks in Barcelona and another city less than 100 kilometers. On 18th of May in Germany, another terrorist attack, and new attacks in other European countries in addition to what will still be ahead, all to create the imbalance through fear, and if it is using society itself, impose an absolute military and police dictatorships in all countries. In this way, by the year 2026, 2033, a new global political and social disorder must be imposed, where the police, the military, and a new caste of politicians will gain total control of the earth, just as the ancients of days end up the anxiety or the man of the days end up gain control in this sphere. And the same way the Federation in the Galactic Alliance itself, and with it the Intergalactic Federation with the extract of Nebadon, where even Micah itself became hostage to this instruction that he unwillingly helped to mount in the search for the balance of lost societies. By the year 2026, 2033, a new political and social world disorder must be imposed, where the police, the military, and the new customs. So this instruction must be politically in control. Following that line, they can now connect with other texts. I have already explained that the occult government has direct access to the Galactic Alliance and has its protection, because what is being placed in the political structure of the earth through the strategically inserted Zionist members and control like that imposed in all the other quarantined planets and those in the Federation below 6th dimension under the dictatorial line to certain true laws, to contain true laws and punishments, the action of those who are outside the permissible standards. The incarnational process on earth in the other world of exile is basically to place the soul within a clone so that it is imprisoned and unconscious. So through the conversion, and the plumb, and even through my process of project of planet Earth and the place where I go tonight, I was asked to open this permission to you, besides to think with your cerebral cortex and astral, give you one more important push to get out of being ignorance and start process of ascension. In order for you to realize the breadth of information power of the control matrix, if you talk to the Orisas of low standard or even the middle plane, the Orisas is actually a group, a caste, a group, a lineage of deities that originate from Africa. It's an African culture of deities, but some have low standard, which is very primitive, and they require sacrifices, even sometimes through blood sacrifices. And he explains the low standard, even the middle plane, because they are all stuck in the false beliefs of karma in the incarnational process, as if it were necessary for evolution and transmutation of karma by suffering, because nobody evolves through traumas and through hard knocks. If you say that you love hard knocks and you love sufferings, then you are a masochist. And a Jews who foments masochism is what? Sadist. Those who inflict pain on the masochist are the sadists. And so it creates a masochist system. But if you evaluate the social process, it is impossible for you to become a being of love, ethical, when even the government is corrupt and driven by the tax enslavement of population. That is not only in Brazil, but in all countries that use the same economic and tax model, where it pays up to about 85% of taxes without the people noticing. This model leaves the psychic potential exhausted beyond the constant vampirization and the frequency of the threshold by the clones that reside there and on your genetic code, and through the implants that support, like spider webs, the flow of information of the matrix of control, of dominion and control of humanity. Just when a consciousness returns to the incarnational process, it's again within that same flow and reactivates the contrast of the past. So that means when you leave the body, you die, disincarnate, whatever, you go through the same vibration, the same wavelength, and you reactivate, you bring open back all the contracts of the past without the so-called evolution leading to ascension. That means when you go there, even though you have scored mark, they will give you a 0 point. They will find faults in you. They will bring karma ascertained to you, karma given to you that were not yours, but of other people, other entities, not people, other entities, aliens, etc. Nothing to do with you, but they will tell you that's yours. If they doesn't like you, they will tell so, and they will give you bad configuration or holography, and I'll kick you back in the ass and send you back through the tunnel, which is the portal, which is the uterus in your mother wombs, okay? And so it's how it has been happening all up to now. People leave this planet without knowing how to die. What happens? You become as stupid, as lost, as blind as you were here in this body. It's time to wake up. Stop dreaming, stop sleep, stop the trends. The signpost is there. All the signs there for you to see. Let those who has eyes to see, those who have ears to hear, and those who have heart and mind to feel. Because it is imprisoned to the new dogmas of a new physical, astral, or umbrelline under the holographic, or umbrelline is something like purgatory, under the holographic dogmas of imprisonment. Otherwise, if you want to go down, then you go down. You want to like this? Okay, don't complain, don't whine after you leave this body. Because you're going to end up on the reencarnational center of the Anunnakis. Then, following this line of reasoning, the physical body is a prison, and with it, the models of behavior. That's why the people behave crazy, because the world is crazy. And Jews who were supposed to give example is not giving example. Those who are up in the hierarchy and the system of hierarchy is not giving you good examples. So how will especially the youth, the youngster, follows good example if the elders is giving them bad examples? So it's all about role model, it's all about example. And we do learn through examples, especially so children and the young. Okay? So if the person sometimes robs or go berserk, don't blame them. That's the role of the model of the world. Given the model of the world, nobody will ever do that if the world were to be in a different aspect, in a different angle. But as long as we live in this way, nothing changes, because the transformation starts from each of us. You have to be either two things, the follower or the transformer. It's all up to us. Otherwise we cannot win. Sometimes we have what we deserve, and not what we need, not what we want. We have what we deserve, and not even what we need or want. Because men want like this. Many people want like this. At least 95, I would say, 96% of the world is in trance. Then, following this line of reasoning, the physical body is a prison, and with it the models of behavior, religion, and dogmas that are inserted from time to time, dividing public opinion so that the goal of ascension is set aside on the base of which each line offers as a miracle. Be in the educational, religions, dogmatic, nutrition, sport, creating a competition between different models, and if that someone keeps control and focus on your life without you noticing that it is within a game where the only thing you do not have is the right to be free from the system. The marvel of the physical biological body is actually the product of an interstellar super engineering of various groups that was invented by the Voronadax and the Lanonadax billions of years ago to shape the baryonic reality. As I have been writing to reveal a part of the cosmic process where you and your monads or your place of origins end up fragmented in the incarnational process beneath the existential flow of 9-dimension, creating the concept of physicality and duality within these holograms. The condition that each consciousness possesses in the universe is to be in fact a co-creator with the ability to generate psychic power, or rather psionic energy. All are co-creators. Nobody and nothing is better than another, just different by force or hijacks, whatever, but everybody has the power to co-create together, because we are part of an immense interwoven tapestry. And if this duality became a double-edged blade, because according to what was created by the members of participating in this enormous cosmic game of chess in the universe, some were favored while others were harmed, generated the concept of duality, or even injustice, inequality rather than equality, between good versus evil, which in fact is a holographic illusion employed by several paradisiac sons, heavenly sons, as a means of control and power, or means the chosen one, and balancing various sectors of the universe, and forcing the supra confederation, the 7 samurais, or the Jedi to intervene and place a huge quarantine within the most committed sectors. The 7 Jedi had to intervene in the process to avoid a war of cosmic order involving the main internal classes of Nebadon and the onset of Laniaki, affecting the lines of the probability of time and space. With the persecution, even the prison decree and the second and third cosmic deaths decreed by the 7 samurai of the Supra Confederation, this paradise or heavenly sons eventually took refuge in the immaterial universe of Saraten and then entered into the existential flow of the quarantine planets of the Milky Way and of other galaxies in the North Sea quadrant with its 49 galaxies. I wonder why they always have Asian terms or name. Those, or what's they call Asian Native American, those the flow of duality was more intensely transferred along with at least 13 ancient days. Or the elderly sought by the 7 Jedi of the Supra Confederation for crimes of abuse of power on behalf of Micah and other cosmic entities. Corruption has even reached the level of the ancient the elderly one, who should audit and protect the quadrants where the biological life developed and the spirit entered into the flow of material life. This corruption involves the ancient design of Unhotep and its dissidents uncertain and other groups that eventually control the vast sectors of Nebadon to impose unauthorized experiments with a high gradient of duality. In other local universes, they did not have success because the Supra Confederation had greater access and the presence of his Yaslon and his team, together with the context of the 7 Jedi of the Supra Confederation, not allow its existence, annihilating these proposals and its members. But in Nebadon, because of Micah Open's and most loving proposition, the thing was much more complicated and extensive in the temporal flow of the universe, with consequences for the neighboring quadrants. Too much problem. The biological body of the Earth and therefore of humans has several genetic markers that are viruses and implants of each of the species that participated in its development. That is why there is a constant investigation of the psionic process of the soul within the endocrine metabolisms in humans, which is why abduction processes and studies are routine. They never stop it or will stop as expected, since they are part of the program of observation and evaluation between the corporal physical plane and the other planes of energy of the subtle bodies in relation to the original programs installed in these bodies. In the souls in the astral body, when is the soul in astral body, when it was in some thousands of years ago, according to stellar origin, the soul develops an important process of connection between the flow of the consciousness cortex of the astral body and the I am self, which is actually a partial fraction of its monad, or the origin, the original primitive source. The astral body of the terrestrial physical body is a hybrid between the cryogenic body and the superior astral body that was genetically combined with the human terrestrial genetic matrix to develop a mixed astral body that would generate the incarnational imprisonment process and thereby be trapped within of the respective frequencies of the Earth quarantine, prevent human consciousness from awakening to the true and compromise star reality and the real reasons for the quarantine on Earth and its civilization. Over time, members of the different federation and the specific group of 22 delegations have in the past 3.2 million years developed countless genetic experiments in different fields of genetic and spiritual engineering to gain control and ability to clone the soul to raise their technological capacity to compromise the tasks of the members of the Lanandadek order and the Melchizedek and other organizational structure Nebedan within the quarantine imposed more than 10 billion years of the time count. And this way, duality and its flows of countless facets between the harmonic and the disharmonic plane eventually flourished and presented innumerable configuration of evolutions and sufferings for others. The Saint Esmeralda Order and the Saint Amethyst Order are some of the institutions of Supra-Confederation act behind the scenes to carry out the reversal of main processes of this control matrix. But for this, each one of you must begin your internal meditation procedures with your anchor and break with the contracts of imprisonment with the dogmatic deities of the past. This rupture is the most difficult because psychic limitation and at the same time implants or could be a ship. Sometimes the financial and social limitation where you are a slave of the economy and the labor process for survival does not allow you to invest in your internal process and break with the holograms that keep you imprisoned in the holographic world network of suffering, guilt, fear and despair generated by political institutions worldwide. Because now people have to pay bills, people have to work, people just have to live in the matrix whether they want it or not. Each marker in your physical body is associated not only with your contracts but with the experiments you are part of along with the stellar groups of the 22 delegation Galactic Alliance or the secret government or other members of the Federation that have representation in the Sion system, where the Adamic human matrix, as we call it, is recorded as a biological program and a particular commercial patent, so to speak. This patent originally granted to Michael was stolen and misappropriated by various heavenly sons, and so they all gain access to the Reencarnational matrix and the various genetic programs into the developed mutations on that original program. Thus, the human ethnicity has more than 49 branches besides the mutations developed in the laboratory to adapt to other types of planets different from their original configuration. So apart from us, there are others who has the capacity to have the code to travel to other astral worlds, and like us, not be confined here as a prisoners and idiots. And on us and on the other world of exile, an endless laboratory of genetic material in flesh has been created to develop other programs such as stem cell cloning for stellar beings to work diseases and other resources along with mechatronics and beings of the artificial intelligence or androids lineage, which are associated in some respect with the Federation's groups. In the face of the question of technological equivalence that has been demonstrated in the recent conflicts, causing the IAs to make association with the group they once wanted to dominate and control. So Android is dangerous, and by the years 2030 they maybe take control. The operational mode of AI in human societies to generate the development of technology to the point where humans beings are totally enslaved by it, just like the smartphone as it is already is with the application of the cell phones, with which you do various things for the convenience of believing that they make life easier, when in fact they are atrophying the physical body and the very reason that is becoming dependent on these devices. For you to have an idea, even meditation application already exists for more advanced mobile users, which involves a radiation network that is being inserted into humanity neural network in conjunction with the chemical products of aircraft and all chemical industry on the planet added to the Wi-Fi network of the planet, generating the expansion of certain parameters of the quarantine frequency resonate. How to get rid of this? If most of humanity considers this technological process to be natural and practical, a change is urgent but personal. It is something that you cannot transfer either to your own courage, for each one must develop his own mechanism of liberation through his choices of free arbitrary choice. Most of these students return into the equivalent line for men contributions Esmeralda or their work in other plans, and a part remembers the dreams and projects inside the ships and the temple, knowing that they develop studies and tasks of apometry and the planetary context in the school and its own life of Reencarnational history, which is a guarantee that you are really investing in operational rescue personnel and rescue operation, and of those who are close to you but still suffer the attacks of the astral and physical plane arising from your incarnational reality. Change this physical part depends on one's personal life, the choices and way of life they desire. However, it is increasingly difficult to make these changes due to the technological dependency that is being imposed on society in all countries to establish a global control network proposed by the UN Council Worldwide for 2024. With monitoring plans in all the inhabitants of the earth in order to impose the New World Disorder. That's why it's urgent that you understand the importance of liberation through the repeal of the reincarnational contracts on us. By all the sleeping entranced children, sleeping lost on earth, even though most of the reasons for the imprisonments are summarily questioned by the Forum of the Federation. There was abuse of power and politicking in choosing who should or should not be exiled. Another sort of factor in the post-war harmonization process of Orions and the planets and quadrants directly involved in the conflict. So, to whom should I ask for help? This is a factor that nefarious or rebellious groups use in their favor by employing holograms of false commanders. but all of you have internal divine connection with your source, which resides in the trine of flame that must be developed through meditation and exercise next to your uncle. In this way, uncle usually a guardian, spirit guide, something like that. In this way, all of you have been given personal work tools. This work is not to free the planet, as men believe, but rather to free itself from the moorings and holograms that bind you to the earthly process in a karmic way. All of you need to develop sensory capacity and intuition within the hierarchies of the command of the Super Confederation through your anchoring in the whole Esmeralda order to establish an intimate line of tasks and development of your personal spirituality that has no relation to the devotional question or religion that people confuse. Being spiritual does not mean being religions, but rather being a person linked with your personal focus. Your intuition is psychic manifestation in the field of mediumships without labels and divisional concepts. Well, I know that this article generates a lot of doubt and questions, and I believe there will be a lot to be explained for you. But in this first part, the idea is to touch the wound and begin an internal process of questioning and a breaking of more holograms to at a later stage. To change new conceptual paradigms activated to the other supradimensional bodies that interact with the astral body of the cryogenic body, which in the case of CKE students were largely activated by initiating the Great Call, but there are many students who have not yet performed this awakening by your choices within the control matrix that still resides in its through your personal behavior. Evaluate this article for your meditation and introspection, generating with your anchoring the break of more labels and imprisonment programs and begin a new phase. All the work to be done by you on the subital plans are functions that were stopped until they were activated in the process of connection with the whole order, which repositioned them at the command of the Federation being withdrawn from the process of exile within the earth. However, you are still incarnate on us. Through the dreams and projects that you remember out of this terrestrial reality, you are receiving tools to break the codes and contracts of the reencarnational process on earth. Be sure that you are indeed cosmic citizens and not just terrans or terrestrial on a weak and fragile line of questionable evolution. Free oneself from the incarnational process depends on each one through their faith with the intuitive ability and detachment that we all must work to be able to choose to ascend and resume their function with the star command either within the federations or beyond together with the MYP. True of you without the level of submission that was imposed upon each one in the earthly process, and in other words of exile implanted in millions of beings embodied in the physical earth and the threshold. Become free of your only fear and guilt, and with that the project will become more intense and the memory is greater, giving you full wisdom and understanding that you are already acting in the other plane as the helpers and assistants in the process of awakening other people and in the process of Operation Rescue through its anchor teachers and the Sun Esmeralda command. Stay in the light of your heart and in the harmony of your mental Yes, long yes.